You've got questions and we've got answers. Sports business reporter Darren Rovell joins the show to talk about all of the latest happenings with Panini's ability to create football cards this fall, and if we're going to see football cards from Topps and Fanatics. Welcome to another episode of the Geoff Wilson Show. And what an episode this is, because it has been a wild week of news here in the sports card hobby. As you know, back on Monday, the NFL Players Association cut off Panini. They said to Panini, stop making products, stop making football cards with players' images and likenesses from the NFL Players Association effective immediately. Now, they did say that Panini could continue its contracts with individual players, but as you're going to find out soon, that does not mean that Panini is still able to produce full football card sets. It doesn't mean that at all. Then, of course, Panini comes out and responds. There's lots of questions around Topps and Fanatics and maybe what they're doing in the background with creating football card sets. So I'm going straight to the source to get you answers on all of the questions that you have around this. Sports business reporter Darren Rovell was the first to break this news. And Darren has been following this story extremely closely. He has got sources all over this story, and we are bringing him on now on the Geoff Wilson Show to dive deep into all of the latest, and we are going to give you some news and information you may not have heard yet. So let's go ahead and bring Darren on the show. Darren, welcome to the show.
Geoff, I don't know how to react to that.
that was a good reaction, by the way. For those of you just listening on audio, Darren's initial reaction was just slamming his hand against his head. It has been that kind of week. It has been just a wild week of news for the sports card hobby, everything going on. Let's step through it, and then I got a million questions. I know you don't have all of the answers, but you probably have more answers than most. So we're gonna step through it and answer as many of these questions as we can for our audience. Monday, the NFL Players Association sends this notice out to agents. You were the first person to report on it. Tell us about what happened there.
I'm sitting on my couch and it's 5:10 p.m. and I get 7 texts at the same time. Holy crap. The NFLPA just let all agents know that the Panini deal is over, effective immediately, and Fanatics will take over. And so immediately I okay, obviously it's real. I have 7 agents sending this to me. I then tried to call the NFLPA, and I still haven't been able to correspond with the NFLPA, which is kind of weird because obviously you make an announcement of this magnitude, you would think that you would figure out exactly what is going on. And what led to this. As you said leading in, I don't have all the answers, but what I think I have the answer to is the way that they approach this. If I were a lawyer for the NFLPA, I would need to have some sort of serious breach to make this type of announcement. This is, just to go back, they have the rights through the 2026 season. It's a 10-year deal with the NFLPA, which is the rights to the players' names and likenesses. And to basically hurry it up 3 years and say now, as the first off the line Panini stuff's ready to come out in for the 2023 season, to say effective immediately, Fanatics is new. Well, what's effective immediately? I mean, Fanatics doesn't have cards ready to go, and they don't have the NFL license now. So does that mean? So there's all these questions about what happens now, and at 12 o'clock today, Panini's selling 2023 cards. Does effective immediately? And I'm telling you, I don't know if effective immediately seems to me to be not you've made these products and you can sell them. Effective immediately to me means you made these products when you had a license with us, and you can't sell them because now you don't have a license with us. That's my
Yeah, there's
interpretation.
a lot of interesting nuance here for sure. Yeah, and so I want to the effective immediately bit. So knowing some about contract law, generally, if a termination of a contract is effective immediately, there has to have been a material breach, unless the contract reaches the end of the term, which in this case it didn't. So in order to be effective immediately, there has to be a material breach, and the breach normally has to be significant. It has to be a breach that raises above a certain level of egregiousness. Now we don't know,
Not open to interpretation, Geoff. Basically, not
right?
open to interpretation in the court of law. Yes.
And I would think that that would be doubly true because of the fact that you've got this Panini Fanatics class action litigation going on. The NFL Players Association, probably the last thing they want to do is get dragged in to that litigation or make anything more difficult or muddy there. So if the NFL Players Association is going to terminate this contract immediately, they have to have some real solid grounds. I know you were saying that the other night when, as well, when you were talking with Ken Golden, like there's got to be something very egregious here and also something black and white, at least in the opinion of the NFL Players Association.
Right. So in my world, I'm always talking about morals clauses, right? So in endorsements, morals clauses, where if an athlete does something that is against, the morals, like basically does something bad, does something criminal, and often that is subject to interpretation. Was it bad enough for this company to sever the deal? And when I think about the general things that are in this contract, I think about there is a general factor in this contract, which is this. If Panini or if the licensee is not giving best efforts to be the best they can be, there could be a termination. So I think about the fact that Fanatics under the Tops label has basically signed every NFL player, every draftee under the sun. They got four quarterbacks. They got all these other guys, and then you think about you think about the NBA license, and you have the NBA draft. They have signed 2024 guys, 2025 guys because of the NIL and because of the fact that you can now sign these guys earlier. Now, is that a material breach or is that subject to interpretation that Panini has lost all these guys and is not giving their quote unquote best efforts? To me, that part does not satisfy here. That is too subject to interpretation here, whether they're giving their best efforts, especially as, whether Fanatics claims it's been Panini's good business or not, the business has significantly grown in both sports, obviously, over time. So I then don't know what the material breach could actually be. And so that's also something that I think has baffled all of us. Yeah, and as you pointed out, obviously we're talking about the fact that these guys are suing each other. So why would the PA get involved if there wasn't something cut and dry?
Yeah.
And then we move on and we're like, okay, so what does this mean now? With Panini selling the 2023 product, are they thumbing their nose at the PA? Are they going to now sue the PA? And then what does this mean for us, for the
Yeah.
collectors,
Yes.
right?
There's
What
a lot of
is
questions.
it possible?
Now,
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's possible the contract has an inventory sell-off period. I've done some license deals in the past. It's often the case that when a license deal expires, there's some form of inventory sell-off period in the contract, 120 days, something like that. It may be, okay, when the license ends for product that Panini has already printed as of when the license ends, they've got 120 days or something like that to sell it
But
off. Now,
there is
sometimes
no
though,
there is no sell-off period in contracts where there's a breach. When there's a
normally you're right.
Yeah.
Normally you're right. So
So
if that's the case, and yet we see that Panini's continuing to sell, they haven't stopped selling. As you said, are they defying the NFLPA at this point? And does this mean that either Panini is going to now go to a judge and ask for an injunction against the NFLPA, the NFLPA doing this, or conversely, is the NFLPA now going to sue Panini and go to a judge and ask for an injunction for Panini to stop selling these products?
And then where are we? No football product for 2023? I mean, there's the potential there. I mean, or no football product that anyone cares about. And then now the next issue is the 350 players or so.
Yeah. So the next day, so Tuesday, Panini puts out a statement responding to this. And in Panini's statement, they say a couple of interesting things, right? So one thing they said was, the NFLPA is kind of out of their mind. They then say that the only party benefiting from this is Fanatics. And that's interesting. We're going to get to that in a minute. Panini essentially implying that Fanatics is pulling the strings for all this behind the scenes, even though Fanatics will not comment on this. But, but that's kind of what is being implied by the NFLPA there, or rather by Panini there. And then Panini says that they have 350 players directly under contract, and that, they're going to continue to work with those players. But you've come out and have said that just because they have 350 individual players under contract doesn't mean that they have the right to continue to produce football sets that contain all 350 of these players.
Yeah, that's never been the case, at least since the 80s. Like in the 80s, you would aggregate players. Everyone knows about the Topps contracts, and where they'd sign these guys for $10 or whatever, and each year they'd get people, and you'd collect people, right? That doesn't happen anymore. Ever since the group licensing agreement, you must get them as a group unless you don't have anything. And then if you have, let's say I do a deal with a team. If I do a sponsorship deal with a team, I could make a team set of 5 players without the group licensing agreement. But you cannot individually sign players and then affix that to your NFL deal where you now get the team name and logos. That is not the case. And so I was surprised by the fact that they said that. Now they have strictly autograph deals. If Panini wants to put packs of 8x10s or something, where they want to make packs of signed pictures, they could, but certainly not trading cards.
Yeah, so that's fascinating. And I guess that's, there are some manufacturers currently, like you have Leaf, that sometimes comes out with individual player cards for players who are playing in the league, like Trevor Lawrence, or you have Upper Deck, which has LeBron James under contract and does deals with him,
but
they are not creating complete sets.
Right. And not combined with the logos, right? Like that also would not be allowed, right? So like there would never be a situation where you'd have an NFL deal and you'd have individual player deals, and you'd be able to come out with that player with team names and logos.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. So the idea, which some had kind of reported, the idea that Panini would still be able to come out with, let's say, Prism Football this fall and just use all of their individual player contracts to compile a product like that, you're saying, no, that's not the case. If Panini is going to respect the NFLPA's order, then Panini is essentially done making any type of real football product.
And by the way, they don't have Joe Burrow.
Oh, they don't have Joe Burrow?
No.
Well, I mean, obviously that's a huge one, but I also believe they don't have C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young or Will Levis either, right?
Correct. They don't have any of that. They didn't sign any of the top 4 quarterbacks. They didn't sign a lot of the rookies. Topps did. Fanatics did.
Yeah, so the idea of having a football product, I mean, frankly, even if they could put a football product together with all of the rest of the players, simply by them missing the key rookies, not being able to put the key rookies in the product,
the rookies
makes the product a lot more interesting. Nobody's going to want to go buy the new National Treasures if it has 0 cards for, the top quarterbacks like Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, because those are the guys that everybody's going to be chasing their rookie cards this fall.
Okay, now let's talk about the next complication. So the next complication is, if there is a sell-off period, what have they made so far? right?
Yeah.
Have they made the entire? And by the way, they're printing at a printing press that's now owned by Fanatics.
By the way,
Woo!
isn't that funny? Because I was, one conspiracy theory could be that, Panini would run to their printing facility tomorrow and start cranking out Prism football and then claim it was printed 2 weeks
It's
ago.
owned by
So
Fanatics. Right, exactly.
that's
Exactly. And
wild.
that's the next thing, right? So people would say, "Oh, oh, maybe we can say that, this was already printed, so then we could sell it." No, you can't, because the guys who you're suing own the printing facility.
That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So let's talk about that aspect of it. Panini's statement on Tuesday pointed to Fanatics. I mean, the Panini statement said Fanatics is the only party that benefits from this. And clearly the implication there is that Fanatics has been behind the scenes orchestrating this, getting benefit from this entire thing. Do you think, and I know we're just speculating, Darren, but do you think, has this been an orchestration by Fanatics? Is this some part of a master plan here, or was Fanatics surprised by this news as
I
well?
mean, that makes an allegation that everyone is in cahoots with Fanatics. Now the question is, these people are individual business people. Don't do they have enough pride on their jobs, the people in the unions and the leagues? The thing I think of here is, Fanatics looped all the unions and the leagues in on their business. They're part owners of the business. That's how they got some of these deals. There is nothing in the contract that says there needs to be a request for proposal, and that these need to be open bidding. So everyone got surprised when they're like, "Wait, Fanatics got future rights? There wasn't even an open bidding." There's no requirement for an open bidding. You know, and
Yeah, this isn't a government RFP.
no, 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 it's not a government RFP. And so then they're like, wait, there isn't a okay. So then Fanatics must have been orchestrated. Well, what about the fact that Fanatics has put together such a good deal that they've never seen, which is ownership of our future instead of just licensing dollars. You own pieces of the whole thing. And that's how they got a lot of these deals. So to say it only benefits Fanatics takes away the recognition of the deal that Fanatics created, which was making the union and the leagues part owners of this whole business. Otherwise, with Panini, all it is we do well when you do well, but it's just a percentage of our business. However, if I'm in the NFLPA or I'm in the NFL and basketball is doing well under Fanatics business, I grow too because I own a piece of the overall business. So there needs to be recognition that structure was set up here that actually made the Fanatics deal better than any other deal that's been presented before, which was why there was no thought of, okay, let's wait 3 years or let's make this an open bidding. We don't see there being a better deal than what's being presented to us now. So it is benefiting the unions and the leagues more than any other deal ever.
Yeah. No, that's a very, very fair point. That said, though, Michael Rubin, and I've heard a few stories. I don't know a whole lot about how he went about getting all these apparel licensing deals and exclusive deals where he's taken over the apparel industry and has exclusive contracts with a lot of colleges and universities.
Let me tell you that
Sure.
story, okay? Because I think people should hear this. Okay. So the way Michael Rubin got all these deals with the leagues was when he was, GSI Commerce, which was the initial deal that made him a billionaire. This was around the time when the internet, when people were doing virtual inventory, right? So the internet was coming about, and everyone who was competing with him was doing, okay, we'll have a virtual warehouse. And so we'll run your league business. Someone will order something, and it will take a day or two, but we'll have our virtual warehouse, and then we'll send it out. Michael Rubin came to these leagues and teams and said, no, 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 I'll actually buy the product. I'll have the product in, and I'll beat these guys by a day or two. And sure, I'll have 5,000 Jeremy Lin Knicks dolls when Jeremy Lin gets traded. And I'll have waste, right? I'll buy things and I'll make mistakes. But guess what? The mistakes will cost me 5% of my business, but I'll have everyone's business. So that's how he won, which, again, is that an unfair way? No, it's an incredibly smart thing to do that no one else was willing to take risk of inventory. He bought the inventory and said, even with the waste, I'm still going to win. So yes, okay, the top deal. When people think about that, it's like, okay, he did the licensing. Yes, these companies in our business are not anything without the licenses. And that's what happened there, where they got future rights, licenses. Topps was getting ready to do this business combination, this SPAC, and it was rendered valueless because of the future rights. So I think Michael Rubin has a reputation of being ruthless, but there's also something to be said that he is 2 steps ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, probably a little bit of a combination of both. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. So if he is 2 steps ahead of everybody else, is it possible that Topps and Fanatics were anticipating this and that they have football product? Now, maybe not licensed football product with the actual team logos, but is it possible they have football product ready to go this fall and collectors are going to be surprised when they see Topps Chrome football hit the shelves in a month or two?
That, honestly, I guess nothing surprises me at this point, Geoff. I mean, but that would be wild. That would be wild. And I have no knowledge of that, obviously. But the fact that they signed all these guys would already mean, like, okay, well, we individually have these guys. The question now is, does the NFL fall in the same fashion? Does the NFL now say we have breach with Panini and effective immediately Fanatics is now our, and then now that they own the printing press and the fact that Fanatics is who they are with what they do on the jersey side and the licensing and the printing and the, do they start running things 24? Again, I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but as long as we're going to talk about, hey, there might be no product this year, potentially, do they run the printing press 24 hours and just keep going? And get out a product and say, we are good for this industry. We don't want fans to suffer with nothing.
So the question as to whether the NFL could also cut Panini off early and award the license over to Fanatics early, that's a pretty big question, because if the NFL doesn't do that, then I guess for the next few years, we've got Topps and Fanatics creating unlicensed products, meaning products that they do have the license to put the players on them, but you're not going to have the NFL logos. You're not going to have the team name. So it's going to be, they're going to have to airbrush that off of the players' jerseys, and you're going to have that style of product that isn't fully licensed. We could be looking at that for multiple years. That is probably not going to be super well received by collectors, although there have been companies like Leaf, which have been doing that for a while successfully, and maybe it becomes the norm. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, the crazy thing here, like, let's do like a 3-year redemption. I know people hate redemptions, but like, hey, when we get the license, we promise we'll put the team name and logo on it. I mean, yeah, probably not be received. I mean, that would be a disaster. I mean, that could kill the NFL market. And then the NFL would have to weigh what we're doing to this market, because obviously they're getting they get a regular fee, but then they get a percentage. Then they're hurting themselves. But then against the background of all these lawsuits going on, oh my God, I just, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot for sure. I mean, yeah, so you would think financially it would be in the NFL's best interest to kick Panini to the curb at this point and award it to Fanatics so that Fanatics can start making fully licensed products and the NFL can start being rewarded not just through royalty as they are with Panini, but also because they have an ownership stake in this. But the question is, does the NFL feel like they have enough clear-cut legal grounds? The NFL and the NFLPA don't always see eye to eye on legal issues. Obviously, the two of them are sometimes at war with each other, on particular issues. So, is it possible here that the NFLPA's attorneys said, yes, you can kick Panini to the curb and we feel comfortable with it, but the NFL's attorneys say, no, we don't think there's enough evidence. We don't feel comfortable with it, and we don't want to get caught in the middle of, the class action suit. So we're just going to leave the Panini contract in place for the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, listen, they probably have very similar contracts, but not identical, not identical. And so, is there a scenario where there is a breach on the NFLPA side and not on the NFL side? Is that possible? And I would say maybe. If there is any ambiguity here, obviously the counsel of the PA and the NFL are completely separate, and lawyers differ. So it could be the same exact contract, and they could have a different opinion of things. And then
But
that would leave the collector in limbo. But you're right in saying that if the NFL doesn't go along here, then everyone suffers.
yeah, so you would have to think that the NFL Players Association would assume the NFL was going to go along, because if the NFL Players Association were to make this move and the NFL then were not to follow suit and also cancel their deal with Panini, we have potentially created a 3-year period where we have no fully licensed football card products, which is going to hurt the NFL Players Association. In that scenario, the NFL Players Association likely would have been better off sticking with the Panini deal for the next 3 years. So you would have to think that the NFL Players Association believes the NFL is going to follow suit, and that's one of the reasons why they went ahead and made the move.
Now let's just remind everyone that that Fanatics already has the NFLPA deal and the NFL deal in future years, and they already have agreed to this deal where they have, ownership of the business. So although they are mortal enemies and often don't agree, they did agree to the Fanatics deal in future years. So that would make me think that you're right in that they would probably be in cahoots, or it would be in their best interest to be together here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's you would think, right? So that would then indicate that maybe there's some news from the NFL that's going to get released soon, that the NFL has done a similar thing. I'm surprised it didn't happen on the same day. You would have thought that if it was a coordinated effort, though, that you would have seen the NFL like immediately follow suit.
Well,
It's been a
that's
couple of
also the
days now.
surprise with this, Jeff, right? So that the news came through by the PA deciding that it was more important for the agents to know than the collectors, maybe, or the general public. In fact, the NFLPA has still not issued a release.
Yeah. At
Right?
least as of the filming of this. Now, this situation is so fluid. We're filming all of this here, Wednesday, earlier in the day on Wednesday. Who knows? Wednesday afternoon. This releases first thing Thursday morning. So
You
who
bet
knows what's
you
going to
you
happen
better
later
put
today?
this out. You better put this out quick, or we're wasting our time.
That's true, because this is a fluid situation, and so it's going to be interesting to continue to watch the news and see what happens here in the days ahead. So the different paths this can take really at this point. So the NFLPA has said its thing already. You've got Panini that's continuing to sell product. So I mean, your path that this can go essentially is either Panini stops selling product at some point and essentially folds up and goes home, or Panini continues to sell product, maybe continues to produce product, thumbs its nose at the NFLPA and says, "Oh, sue us." Good luck with that. And then Panini tries to so you could have Panini sue the NFLPA, or you could have the NFLPA sue Panini for not listening to their order. You could get a judge involved. You could get an injunction. Lawsuits move slowly, but an injunction could move quickly and put an immediate end to something happening, like Panini selling, continuing to sell product.
So I got DMs from people saying, "Oh, should I buy this because Panini is obviously all the collectors are looking for an angle of what makes something rare." I was thinking today, do you do you go buy online the Panini 2023 product? Uh, Years ago, I did a story about the famous Alex Gordon card and how it didn't comply with the rules of the Major League Baseball and the rookies, and they had to cut out the physical card and they still put it in packs. And um, could 2023 football be rare? Now, I would say that you order it and it says 2 to 4 weeks. Will anyone get their product? What's going to happen in the 2 to 4 weeks? But should you go to Panini and plunk down your maximum 12 boxes? Um, that the funny th I mean, collectors are always thinking about how to play things. So to me, it's kind of funny to, to think about that. Wow, I played this lawsuit perfectly, or I played this legal battle perfectly. Only 800 boxes were issued, and the rest must be destroyed. So I'm having fun with that now, Jeff.
I mean, that's interesting, right? They did just come out with Score Football. So, it's, a Bryce Young base Score Football rookie card that ordinarily would be worth 99 cents, at most. You'd find those in dollar bins. Could that suddenly be Bryce Young's only NFL licensed, rookie card if all these other products are put on hold, or one of his only? That's interesting to think about. Who knows? I think another interesting impact is, what will this mean for previous year football products? You've got breakers. Breaking has obviously become a massive industry, and Fanatics is pushing breaking, and wants to continue to grow that industry. And breakers have to have product to open. They've got to have product to open. That's their entire business, is based upon product. If you suddenly get into a situation where there's no football product for them to rip this fall, then what happens? Well, what probably happens is they're going back and buying as much product from 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019 as they possibly can, which probably means that the market on all of those products, particularly sealed products, could potentially explode with, a bunch of added demand and not that many of those sealed boxes still hanging out there on the market.
Yes, and obviously the next question to explore is if there is breach from the Panini side on the NFLPA and then the NFL believes it, does the NBA and the NBPA believe it?
Yeah.
And and then is it possible we have no cards anywhere in NFL or NBA? I mean, again, it's a crazy proposition, but and a long shot, but there's a shot that against the background of this breaking business that relies on quantity of product.
You have to think that Fanatics would not create that to happen, because Fanatics is investing heavily in building this industry up. Fanatics Live, which is their big app, they're pushing heavily into the breaking space. They want to take on Whatnot and these other eBay Live and all this type of stuff. I cannot imagine that Fanatics would just suddenly cut the hobby off. And I know this is not Fanatics directly. This is the NFLPA and the NFL. But if Fanatics has anything to say about it, which of course they do to a degree because they're in business with these sports leagues on this trading cards venture, I cannot imagine that Fanatics would help, or push for, or even allow that outcome, because that outcome would mean their other business units just die for the next, 6, 9, 12 months. And with it, potentially part of the hobby dies. Potentially collector base falls out and the ability to market goes away. And it feels like that would be a pretty extreme. It feels like that would be dropping a nuke on the industry that you just invested billions of dollars in.
And remember, they just bought PWCC, so they have that, and they have an events business and plan to do national style shows. So then the next question becomes, has Panini been significantly weakened, and then does Fanatics and Panini resume talks to for Panini to sell the Fanatics?
That's the
Because
total shark move,
well,
right?
because all this is about opportunity cost. And with what you just said and all that Fanatics has invested in the business, a 3-year wait in NBA and NFL would just kill what they've built. And so the opportunity cost is we have to figure out how to buy Panini now, because they're, we can't, even though Panini wouldn't have the rights, the fact that this could be tied up in courts, would just ruin everything. So I think there is a play there as well.
Yeah, and I hope that would come. That would be the best possible outcome to all of this, to get this resolved peacefully. Also, I love that outcome from the standpoint that I really want Topps to be able to acquire Panini's brands, because Panini's brands, frankly, are are more respected. I mean, obviously more known, particularly in football and basketball. But I think in general, collectors favor Prism over Topps Chrome, and in general, collectors favor Flawless and National Treasures
Correct.
over Topps Dynasty and Transcendent, whatever you might, level set each of these on. So I think for Panini, for Panini's brands to prevail would be a good thing for the sports card hobby as well. I hope that comes to be. Will it come to be? I don't know. It really seems emotional at this point. Like, it really seems like Panini is coming from a place of feeling completely, utterly, and totally screwed by Fanatics, and just it seems like they hate Fanatics, and they haven't
Well,
been
they're
able to
trying to
get
get rid of
a
it. I mean,
deal done.
they're trying to submarine their whole business. I mean, I
Yeah.
understand their feelings.
Yeah, no, their feelings are valid, but there's two ways to approach it. I mean, one is to be mad, but then realize that it's the best interest of your business to get a deal done, which is what Topps did, with Fanatics a year and a half ago. Or the second thing is to be mad about it and then to pout and to fight, which I don't know all the intricacies of what's happened with Fanatics and Panini up to this point, but obviously they haven't gotten a deal done, and there seems to be some emotion around the entire thing. So if Fanatics now goes knocking on Panini's door, is Panini just going to give them the middle finger? It's possible that they will, but from a business standpoint, should they? Maybe not. But I don't know. It's going to be, it probably, some of this also comes down to how many eggs Panini's putting in the basket of their class action lawsuit, because Panini may now think that their best chance for a big payday is not to sell to Fanatics, but actually to pursue and win the class action lawsuit. And, I'm sure if Fanatics is going to acquire Panini, that acquisition would come with a full release and end to the class action lawsuit. So Panini may not want to sell for that reason alone. They may believe this class action lawsuit is their ticket out of this.
Well, they've hired David Boyes, who's probably 2,500 an hour or more, so they are entrenched.
Yeah, they are entrenched. They're going to burn a lot of money during a time period where they're going to potentially start losing a lot of money. I mean, if this NFLPA move was unexpected, their revenue is going to take assuming they do stop printing the injunctions against them, their revenue is going to go from, very high projections, just drop off a cliff when it comes to football card revenue immediately, not to mention all of the product that they may have to destroy that they've already printed. So then you've got a material loss and all of that. So, I mean, their financial situation could rapidly change. If the NBA follows suit, then their financial situation, I mean, they are just going to get slaughtered financially. Can they even afford to, go after a class action lawsuit when those lawsuits could easily be tens of millions of dollars or more to pursue?
Fanatics has a lot of money on the sidelines, so.
They do. All right, Darren, this is going to be fascinating. I appreciate you coming on and answering all these questions. We don't have all the answers, but we tried to fill in gaps as best we could, and you've been doing excellent reporting on this. Before we get out of here, where do you think this all goes?
Don't do this, Geoff. Don't do the prediction thing. How dare you? How dare? Where do I think this could go? Oh, I don't know if I want
Just
to
a
be on.
simple question, right, Darren? Just a simple question.
I think this is really up to the one provision of, is there a sell-off period? If there's not, which I don't think there is, like, God, this is really up to the courts now. What is a judge going to say? This is out of the hands of my thoughts, of Fanatics' thoughts, of Panini thoughts. Like, where is the judge going to decide? I'm pretty sure that Panini is going for an injunction right now. In the next 48 hours, you're going to hear that they are filing a motion against the NFLPA to get an injunction to be able to get a stay so they can continue to sell cards. And then it's just up to what the judicial system decides. And these injunctions, like normally summary judgments, injunctions, I mean, this holds massive weight. So I don't think fans want to be thinking about the judicial system. I think they want to collect cards and they want to get their PSA 10s. But right now, given how collectors spend probably more time thinking about their collection than their jobs every day, like this gives a lot of people agita, and so uh, I have basically shelved all my gambling reporting at least until the start of the season for just doing this, and it's wild. The whole thing. I've been doing this for 23 years, and the twists and turns of this story I've never seen.
Well, for everybody out there, if you're not following Darren Rovell, make sure to follow him on Twitter. Make sure to follow him across all the platforms, Instagram, etc., because that's where news has been breaking since day one on this entire thing. Darren's obviously got very good sources and is getting information very, very quickly and rapidly. So make sure to follow Darren.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you, and I'm sure we'll be back together soon.
You got it. Take care, Darren. I hope you enjoyed that interview. I thought that was fantastic with Darren. And guys, if you did, please give this a subscribe and a like. The Geoff Wilson Show is available, of course, on YouTube in its full-length video version, as well as on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So make sure to subscribe to the podcast version as well, so you can always listen to this show on the go. It is the Geoff Wilson Show. Search for it on YouTube and on Spotify and Apple Podcast. We'll see you next week for our next one. Take care.